Hi, my name's Megan. Welcome to today's live reading of Matador by Kathryn Dodson, presented by Itsy Bitsy Book Bits. Join me. Chapter 1. Jessica glimpsed her mother through the large windows of the cottage, the inside bright and cheery and full of housewarming party guests. Tella, Jessica's dog, sat beside her in the cold pickup and whined in anticipation. If only Jessica could muster the same enthusiasm for Clarice's move to the area. Her mother's new home, nestled under a giant tree, sat at the edge of an impressive commercial pecan grove located a few miles north of El Paso, near the tiny town of La Union, New Mexico. She'd seen the house once before, the day Clarice decided to lease it from her art dealer. Jessica would have leased it in a second, just for the peaceful feeling of the grove of massive trees. Tonight, they made the night even darker, but the bright light shining from the windows welcomed her. A decorated tree, left over from Christmas, glowed with lights and tinsel. The second Jessica opened the door, the dog bounded across her lap and raced toward the house. Jessica followed with slightly less enthusiasm. Her mother had lined the walkway with luminarias, the old-fashioned kind with candles nestled in lunch bags filled a third of the way with sand. Jessica inspected one to make sure her mother had used LED lights instead of real candles. No reason to burn down the pecan grove in half of southern New Mexico. Cool light flickered in the bag. Still hidden in darkness, she paused at the door, unsure whether to knock, try the knob, or turn around. Despite time spent working on their relationship, a barrier remained between mother and daughter. Screw it. Jessica needed to bury the hurt part of herself and just move forward. She swung the door open, and the sounds of the women inside buffeted her. She recognized her good friends Liz and Sarah, once her landlords, and her attorney Alma. These women raised Jessica after her mother abandoned her at 16. But it was time to get beyond that. She had to leave the past behind. Tella burst into the room, wiggling her whole body. She ran up to Sarah and spun around her feet, the Catahoula leopard dog creating a blur of chestnut and white. Tella, stop, Jessica yelled. I'm so sorry. She's just a little excited. Who's a good girl? Jessica baby talked the dog, ignoring Jessica entirely. Sarah baby talked the dog, ignoring Jessica entirely. You need to come around more often, Liz said. We miss you and the dog. I know, sorry. It's just been so busy with the new job and my classes. Jessica had lived in a tiny building on Sarah and Liz's ranch for years. It wasn't until recently that our life turned around. Marrying Angus, purchasing her own home, starting law school, all the stability she now enjoyed didn't exist back then. She'd leaned on them, hard sometimes. Here, honey, have a margarita. Her mother handed her a cobalt blue glass frothing with what looked like a lime green Slurpee. Oh dear, how could her mother not know how to make an authentic margarita? Jessica could have taught a class on that. Thanks, Mom. Jessica looked at her mother, arms wide, waiting for a hug. She set the glass on the counter. Jessica wasn't a hugger, but she wouldn't snub her mom in front of guests. She stepped into her mother's arms, a little awkward but bearable. Tella jumped on the two women, giving Jessica a chance she needed to back out of the embrace. No, she addressed the dog, but then turned to her mom. I'm sorry, but this little monster needs to go on a walk and burn off some of this energy. I'll be right back. The place looks great, by the way. It looked better than great. Her mother had adorned the cream stucco walls with her colorful desert paintings. Thick rugs set atop a burnished terracotta floor. A wreath of chilies hung over the mantel where a fire crackled. Plates of tamales and sweets almost hid the green and red patterned tablecloth thrown over the bar that separated the living area from the kitchen. Jessica inhaled the aroma of her mother's famous chili as she spied the large pot on the stove. It smelled especially good tonight, overlaid with the scent of pinon wood burning in the fire. Just a quick walk, she said to the dog. I want to get back here for the food and company. I'll go with you, Sarah said. I miss both of you. They headed outside. Jessica hadn't thought to brought Elise. Who knew Tella would be on fire tonight? Hey, let's walk around the irrigation ditch instead of the road since I don't have her leash. A dirt track ran beside the dry ditch. A whole network of ditches connected the Rio Grande to the many agricultural fields between El Paso's mountains and the New Mexico's mesa. Jessica had seen the pecans completely flooded in the past, the water hued silver under broad branches and dark trunks. The dry dirt beneath their feet meant the grove hadn't been irrigated in some time. Still, the dirt remained soft, and she hoped Tella wouldn't stray too far off the track, find a puddle, and come back muddy. The dog ran ahead of them into the darkness, occasionally tore back to make sure they hadn't left. Jessica appreciated the quiet of the night and crossed her arms to keep warm. How's the new job? Sarah asked. I really like my boss. I've already learned a lot from her, and she's an unbelievably slick negotiator. Jessica had only worked as a paralegal with Linda, a local attorney, for a couple of months since she left Alma's firm after an altercation with a client. Are you keeping out of trouble? Sarah asked. Well, our clients are all alive, although I'm only 60 days in. She wished she could see Sarah's face in the night to make sure she'd caught the joke. Sarah worried more than most people, and frankly, Jessica had done plenty to earn her concern over the years, what with dangerous jobs and her penchant for hard liquor and other vices. Fortunately, these days she wanted only enough excitement to stave off boredom. Tella, what have you got? Did you find a stick? Sarah asked as the dog danced around them, something white and muddy protruding from her jaw. Oh no, you're filthy. You're not going back into Mom's house. Jessica lunged for the dog. Drop it, she said, her hand firmly on the stick. Only it wasn't a stick. The dog opened her jaws, and Jessica examined the dirty treasure. She noticed the knobs at each end. Jessica dropped it. No, Tella. She placed her boot atop it to keep the dog from picking it back up. What's wrong? Sarah asked. I think it's a bone. Oh, gross. Probably a cattle bone given its size. Maybe. Tella had run back into the night, and they heard her barking not far off. Let's go see. Jessica followed the dog, shining her phone's flashlight in the direction she'd run. When it hit the dog's spotted coat, Tella turned and barked once, then resumed digging. Jessica jogged toward her. Wait, are you sure this is a good idea? Sarah asked, voice and fear in her voice. It's dark and no one knows exactly where we are. We have to find out what's going on. You can stay here if you want. Jessica turned her head toward Sarah, half shouting the words as she trotted toward the dog. No. Sarah's footsteps quickened to a jog. Tella, no, leave it. Jessica's reprimand did nothing to stop the dog from digging furiously into the dirt next to the irrigation ditch. When Jessica reached Tella, she hauled her back by the collar and shone her light downward. Oh no, a human skull. Tella had only partially uncovered it. A section of the lower jaw had scrape marks across it from Tella's paws, and a few teeth lay scattered in the dirt. Sarah, you might want to stay back. There's a skull here. Sarah's footsteps stopped, but her labored breathing continued. The dog whimpered and pulled at her collar.